Now, as I look at the landscape of churches in Utah today, it's really different than when I came 40 some years ago. Because, well, it's interesting. There's some pluses and maybe some minuses. I don't know how to think about that question, but I do see that there are definitely many larger churches compared to before. There are actually a couple of mega churches in Utah that's defined by 2,000 people on Sunday. And that seems like a good thing from the people that I know who are engaged in those churches. But that would have never been true in the 80s, for example. The biggest churches in Utah, probably maybe 800 or 900 people, 1,000 people at that time. Some solid churches doing really good work. But there's been, this idea that churches have become better at what they do in recent times. You look around and say, today's landscape, there's more prominent churches, more larger churches. There's, there's churches that understand the Mormonism, the Mormon culture. There's churches that can adapt to the changes in Mormon culture. The thing, when I got here before, there was a certain level of unity among churches, because there's this kind of like, we can't make it alone. If we don't hang together, then like Benjamin Franklin said, we'll certainly all hang separately, right? So there's that sense of we need each other, and there's not enough of any one tribe, to say we can just hang out with our denomination. Well, no, there's only one other church in my denomination, whatever. And today, I think the growth of the churches and the number of different kinds of churches, and that there's still a unity. There's still a sense of like we're in this together. But to me, it feels a little more fractured. And maybe it's fractured over, theological debates that maybe they're not the things that define our unity in Christ, but they're things that might define our approach, our philosophy of ministry, our priorities. So, maybe these people aren't necessarily talking as much to these people. So there are more of each tribe than there used to be. And so there's some segregation going on. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because each one represents a strength that brings it into the overall mix. By and large, there's fringes that, you get to the fringe and you go, uh-oh. But by and large, so I don't know if the unity is quite as strong as it was before. But as I talk to people outside of Utah, there's still, I think, in my view, is still a sense of unity among a variety of churches of different theological persuasions, denominational backgrounds, that probably is greater than anywhere else, at least that I'm aware of in the U.S., because we still have this sense of like, us against the world. It's still a minority. We're a strong minority, so we need each other. We can't afford to just go it alone. So the climate of the churches, that's one factor in the environment of the churches in Utah today. There's more resources. There was never as many resources as there are now. For when I came, there was no theological education available. If you wanted to get a theological degree and train in seminary or whatever, you left Utah. And the challenge was that a lot of times they left and they had an opportunity to go into ministry somewhere. Someone would pay the bills, and they never came back. So we had a big talent drain from Utah. That was answered to some extent by Salt Lake Theological Seminary back in the day, before it was not able to sustain itself through the 2008 financial crisis. And it's answered to some extent today by Salt Lake School of Theology, which has opened recently. And also by the fact that much more theological education is available digitally online. So there's the availability. So people don't have to leave Utah and never come back in order to get theological training. So I think the level of resourcing, the level of theological depth, acumen probably has increased from today compared to when I first came.